Hey everybody, Mark Edward Lewis here with CinemaSound.com, and thank you for coming back to Record Advanced Tactics in the Podcaster Survival Guide. In our first chapter, we went over some of the basics, and just to make sure that everybody had the same groundwork laid. We want no one left behind, because what we're about to do now is take off like a rocket ship. And we're going to talk about how to actually get good sounding recordings, which microphones sound like what in which environments, and give us a real good understanding that we can hear and make our minds up for ourselves which microphones we should be using given our own circumstances as podcasters. Now, in the very first chapter, we talked about what's the most important thing to have, and the first thing we said was to have a good microphone. No, it was to have a good sounding room, because if you have a bad sounding room, it doesn't matter what kind of microphone you have, it's going to sound bad. But if we have a good microphone in a good room, the other thing we need to keep in mind is placement. Your placement or mine? Where do we put this microphone so that it sounds the best? Is one good placement work for all of them? Is there a single good placement? Or are they different for every microphone? Well, I'm going to tell you that placement is going to make or break your recording, regardless of the kind of microphone you have or the room. You see, in a room, we have all kinds of things: echo, reverb, diffusion, diffraction, absorption, all kinds of things that affect how the sound bounces around the room. It actually becomes its own sort of character, especially if you're in a room that has a lot of reverb or echo. The more absorption that we put in that room, the less bouncing around the sound there is. There's even that diffraction where sound can poke through holes, and it pokes through at different frequencies and spreads from different frequencies. It's really ruinous. And with the wrong sounding room, we've got big trouble. And while it's important to have sound deadening and things like this, it really isn't what we should be focusing on, especially if we're in a remote podcast where we have to go out and set microphones down and just go. Instead, we want to be focused on that placement, because if we can get the microphone placement right, 90% of our issues are solved, as long as we have the right kind of microphone for the job. Now, if I had a buck for every time I saw a podcaster doing a great podcast with great talent, but their microphone was on the included desktop stand, I'd be a millionaire. Listen, just because they give you a stand to put the mic on the desk doesn't mean you should use it. Now, you think about this. Now, I've got this little lavalier here. Now, we know that lavaliers and every kind of microphone, the more close we get to our mouths, the more sensitive they are, the louder, maybe even sound better. How good is the sound going to be here versus down here on the desk? You can't even see the microphone down here. It's off the frame. But my mouth is still up here. Is this going to sound better than this? Is this going to sound cleaner than this? Now, it may be more convenient to have the microphone on the desk. Hey, it came with that nice stand and all. But you're going to get a sound that is the standard, substandard podcast sound with lots of room. You're basically just recording a good sound of your voice reflecting off the wall on the other side and coming back and hitting your navel and then going muted into the microphone, which is why podcasts so often sound like they're in a toilet. We want to have the microphone up on a microphone stand, a real microphone stand that you can get for so cheap, it doesn't matter, and have it right at our talents' faces and, of course, at our faces, which gives us the maximum chance of that microphone, whatever it is, rendering us the best sound possible. So again, no desk-mounted podcasts. Let me show you why. We're here with the AKG Lyra. On a desk, comes with a nice stand, and it actually, on the bottom of the stand, has a rubber pad and a little acoustic washer to keep acoustic coupling from the table coming up to the microphone itself. Now, a lot of people use this stand and the stands of all kinds of other microphones that come with the stands from the Department of the Redundancy Department. And, you know, it's okay, but even here on this sound stage where they do a lot of green screen work and it's sound treated, you can hear a lot of room, this roominess that's going on. And I happen to have it here on the cardioid pattern. So if we talk from the rear, it sounds not great. It's not supposed to. And to the sides, it's not great. But from the top and this side, straight in front, it sounds good. In fact, the Lyra has been engineered so that it does have a good pickup pattern straight up, like this. But still, it's not very close to us. We get a lot of room. Contrast this with the sound of this. I mean, this sounds radically different. And because we would have to turn down the microphone inputs, this room gets much less ringy. But this is also on this straight wood table. Let's see what it sounds like with something else. Now here we have 1-inch acoustic foam treatment from Prime Acoustic. Actually, it's really, really great. We put it on walls in our studio at cinemasound.com all the time. And you can hear that it sounds a little bit better than just this flat wooden table. But again, the sound of my voice throughout this room is really ruining what would otherwise be a really nice recording. Again, nowhere near as great as this sounds direct. Now here we've got just a simple rug on top of the table, which a lot of people do. It definitely helps cut down on high frequency reflections from the desk. Sibilants are definitely absorbed, but that's just about it. You really need something thicker to absorb the sound of what's coming off the desk from my voice and then getting back into the microphone. Now here I've got sort of a mock barrier. It's really just a big post-it note thing that we would put on an easel, but it does give us the simulation of what it would be like to cut out quite a bit of the reflection of the room. And it's quite a bit better, but because we have reflection from the desk itself and the other part of the room where the camera is still reflecting very, very well, this is nowhere near as good as this sound directly in front of the face of your talent. So here we have our same simulated barrier with the 1-inch Prime Acoustic tiles, and you'll notice that high frequencies, sibilants, are not reflecting at all, completely removed, and all we have is the low mids and those low frequencies kind of rolling around. And of course, if I talk at a regular level like this, instead of really, really loudly, then it actually kind of gets pretty good. But again, nowhere near as great as just having it right here. So what do we know about this? Well, we could probably say that we should never, ever have our podcast microphone on the desk. All we're really doing is entertaining the podcast mic with our navels, and there's not a lot of sound that comes out of your navel. Why does this all matter? What's the noise all about anyway? Why can't we just have it nice and convenient? They make these stands after all. Don't they know what they're doing? Well, they do. And of course, it's much less expensive to include a simple stand with a microphone that would go on your desktop than having to buy a big microphone stand that you would have to, put the microphone on, and it might be cumbersome. So this is really, really convenient, and it doesn't sound bad. Why is this happening? Why can't it just sound good? Isn't there a good sound button on here somewhere we can press? Well, not really, because sound bounces all over the place and then comes back. If it only bounced once and left, we wouldn't have any problems. But the fact is that it comes back and returns to us, just like it's happening on the top of this wood surface. So as we move the microphone away from the desktop surface, and even more importantly towards our mouths, it's the sound of our voice becomes way, way louder than anything that's happening out in the room. And as we move it back toward the desk, you can hear check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. The reflections from the desk and out in the room become far more apparent as the volume of my voice lowers and gets closer to the volume of the reflection in the room. Now we can also take our hands and just bring them closer, and you can hear reflection, that sound in my voice, check 1, 2, 3, just from my hands reflecting my vocal sounds back into the microphone. Check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. It's subtle, but as we add more and more microphones with more and more talent in our podcasts, it amplifies, multiplies, and becomes a serious issue. So we want to have microphones off of their stands and on some kind of a microphone stand or some kind of a support system to be able to be as close to our mouths as possible. You get less reflection from the surface that you're putting it on, you get way less echo in the room that you're in, and you just get a way better sound from the talent that you're recording.